We had a hard freeze up here over last winter that cracked the water outlet pipe on my water tower up here. And today we're going to fix it. Now, if you aren't familiar with the water system that I've been setting up here, I encourage you to take a look at the other videos that I've posted. These are two 4,000 gallon water tanks. We've plumbed them in kind of conveniently to do some things, and like I said, I encourage you to watch those videos because we're going to be kind of mimicking this system on this. This right here is the inlet pipe. It just runs off of drip hose, and it runs up to the top of the tank to a float valve. It's the same float valve that I have in the top of this tank right here. And what cracked during winter is this 1 1/4 inch Schedule 80 line. And I've cut it off here. And I'm going to show you guys why I think it failed and how I think it could be improved upon, because I've learned some more things about plumbing since then. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting for you guys. So let's go into the barn. I'll show you the broken parts, and I'll show you the new parts that we're going to be replacing. Okay, so this in a nutshell is what we're working with here. If you can imagine the discharge end of the water tower coming in there, that's where I cut it. This is where it failed. That fitting right there going Schedule 80 to the brass ball valve. Now the idea here is that this ball valve goes down and runs out to my irrigation system to irrigate my trees. This ball valve here is normally closed, and it just has a piece of pipe attached to it so that these fire hose fittings can slip fit onto that, and the fire department can draft off of that. Now, since building my water tanks, I've developed a better system to do this, so we're going to be changing this up a little bit. But this is what was existing, and that is where it failed. Damn, I need to put on some bug spray. Now, I'm not a plumber by trade, but I do kind of work in the plumbing universe. I've been designing water systems for farmers and small landowners through my job for about 10 years now, so I've learned a lot of things since, and I've applied a lot of those things that I've learned here at my property. If we look at the failure point on this thing, we'll notice that it failed right here at this fitting. Now this is just a T to a small piece of pipe and then a slip fitting to an 1 1/4 MPT thread here. You can see it's still stuck in the other end of the brass ball valve. Now what I was told a couple years ago is that these type of fittings here, this is the same kind of setup as here. These type of fittings, they're made out of gray plastic. They're quote-unquote Schedule 80, but they might not actually be Schedule 80. They might be a little bit thinner in here where they meet the threads. And that makes sense that this thing failed during a hard freeze at this point. Since I built this, I would have built this completely differently, which is why we're going to change it up. And I'll show you how we're going to do that right now. So this is sort of the idea for the new system. So coming from the discharge of the water tank, we've got a union so that we can take this whole assembly off and service it. Okay, that's the first thing that's different. It's not hard plumbed in like that one. The second thing is we're going to be using these banjo valves. There's not anything wrong with the brass valves that I used before, and I'll pull those apart and save those in case I need them. But just to stay consistent with my other water tank setup, I'm going to be using these because whoever needs to use them will be able to look for the yellow handle and know that there's water control here. Now if we look here, I'm using this cam lock fitting. Now if you went back and watched my video on the water tank setup, you'll know that I have multiple different connections that can hook onto that cam lock fitting. Similar to that, but just a more secure connection. And I'll show you how that fitting works later because it's kind of cool. So rather than going T to pipe to adapter from slip to thread, I'm just going to be using these. These are called nipples, and I'll cut them here, and I'll solvent weld the smooth side, and I'll tape the threaded side. Not only can you be assured that these are true Schedule 80, they're just better, and it's cheaper than having to buy extra fittings. If you're plumbing your own water system, look heavily into using these nipples because they're great. One other note about pipe nipples. You'll notice that this seam runs all the way up through the threads, okay? And you can see where it's been injection molded. Now, there's not really anything wrong with that, but there's a better way to do this. So when you're buying pipe nipples, this is kind of the inferior product because different manufacturers have different molds. The threads can be slightly different. The better way to get your pipe nipples is an actual true piece of Schedule 80 PVC that's been cut and threaded. You'll notice that there's no seam on this. These are superior to those. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the good stuff for this setup, so we'll just be using this. With all that being said, we'll go ahead and we'll start building this assembly, and then I'll show you how I connect it to the water tower, and I'll show you those fittings I was talking about so that we can hook the fire hoses up to it. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about the water tanks too, just so if you guys didn't watch that other video, you'll know. So that's the complete assembly there. Let's go ahead and hook it up to the discharge, and I'll show you guys how it works. Alright, so here's the final assembly mounted up. Now, like I said before, white pipe goes to a float valve in the top, so whenever I have pressure out of my well, this thing automatically fills to the top. And then out of the bottom of the tank, there's a bulkhead that goes into this 1.5 inches. I think I was calling it 1.25 inches before, but it's 1.5 inches. This valve with the barb here goes out to my irrigation down there. And then this will be so that you can hook up any number of fittings. So for example, I've got this fitting hooked up on my tank that goes to a garden hose thread. These are my fire hose thread adapters, so I still haven't tightened that down, but this goes to 1.5 inch fire hose, so a fire truck could pull off of this. I've also got 2.5 inch here. All of these fittings stay in that watertight ammo can, accessible at any time. Also, I've got a small Honda water pump in there with some flex line that's also set up to run on the 2-inch cam lock, so I could hook a pump up to this. Everything is kind of interchangeable and hopefully self-explanatory. Eventually that will go below ground and distribute water through the entire property. But yeah, that's our new water tower discharge. I may at some point add a little bit of blocking off of this support here, just because this is kind of a heavy assembly and it is kind of sticking out a little awkwardly. Anyway, I hope this video helped somebody out. If you want to see stuff similar to this, subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing more work on the water system, getting it tuned up, going below ground, setting up a distribution system. And yeah, water is life up here, so having a robust water system at your off-grid property is kind of a priority. And this thing is all starting to come together. If you're wondering what this is too, this is another project that's happening. You'll have to just tune back in and see what I'm doing. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next video.